with you on short stories because in our last class, we looked specifically at tales and fables. So today we will look at a little bit of an introduction to what short stories are. Okay, let's see. Before that, any problems so far? Anything you want to clarify about the course, or you want to ask me about the course? Is everything going okay so far? Okay. All right, good. Please feel free if there's any problems or any concerns to get in touch. Like I said, you can email me, or you can even please during class time when I see you, this is the time for you to ask questions if anything you're unsure of anything. Also, what? Yes. Regarding our coursework too, where you need to work on selected literary texts, I think the other day I texted Anis and I sent the book that you are required to have. You can buy it online. Oh, you got it. Oh, great. Did you use it? Have you already studied these stories or what?
No, I
Have
just
you?
bought it 2 days ago
Oh,
from the
oh,
link you sent.
okay. Okay, great, great. Yeah, so the short story that we will be doing is from that book, and you can also, I mean, it will be useful for you later on as well. When you go into schools, that would be the text that if you're teaching Form 4 or Form 5, you would be using with your students. All right. So yeah. Now what we'll do is I learned this because I'm also teaching the third years there, and they told me how they uh, they were sharing with me how they do some of the classroom administrative things like picking a group to work on for their stories. So they used a random generator when assigning. Is that how you guys do it as well, or how do you choose? No, you don't. Usually, how do you
You
like
just
get?
choose
You just choose yourself.
who you
Okay.
want.
Yeah. Initially, I thought I let you just choose whatever short story you want. But then I don't know. Maybe there would be some students who wanted to work on that story, and then just because they are a little bit late in filling up the form, then they don't get to work on that story. Or maybe later some might think, one story is shorter or one story is longer, and there may be some dissatisfaction. So what they do is what we'll do is once you have decided on your groups, then just say there are 7 groups, then we'll just use a random generator and then assign which group is going to work on which story. So we'll just do it like that. So this is what the third year students shared with me, that's how they pick the stories, because I think from their experience they found that sometimes there's some dissatisfaction among classmates, when picking such stories. And also, so I'll put out later a Google form, a Google Doc, sorry. And once we have kind of assigned the different stories to different groups, you can fill up your names there. All right. Also, yeah, what else? Do I need to tell you anything else? Yeah, we'll go on to today's lesson first, and then if anything comes to mind, I'll let you know. For those students who just came in, good morning. Can you please remember to take your attendance on Putra Blast? All right, please take your own attendance. Just take it yourself. Right, so let me share my screen and we will begin with today's tutorial. Okay. we did this. So we looked at we looked a little in our lecture last on Monday, a few days ago. We looked at what are short stories, and you know, you kind of gave me your definition of what you understand short stories to be, and we've looked at how throughout humankind, people have always enjoyed stories. We like stories, you know, narratives. Um, I guess that's just who we are as human beings, huh? And we looked also at some ancient forms of brief narratives before we actually have the formalized term short story. So in the past, in ancient times, people told stories through fables and tales, shorter forms of narratives. Okay, they did have plays and all, but when we're just talking about brief narratives, just two examples that I want to highlight here are the fable and tale. So we looked at, you know, some fables like examples of fables like the hare and the tortoise, and this example that I gave you. What's happening? Sorry, I got disconnected. This example of an appointment in Samara, which we looked at last week, and tales. All right, things you may have grown up reading fairy tales like Jack and the Beanstalk, or you know, Snow White, those kind of stories. Okay, so now let's specifically look at the short story. Can everybody hear me well?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I don't know why I got disconnected from my other device. All right, so while the fable and tale are more ancient forms of the short story is of more recent origin. Okay, and if we compare short stories and tales and fables, like I said, in a lot of tales and fables, you have talking animals, talking objects, but a short story is a little bit more realistic, right? And in short stories, you find that the writer usually presents the main events in greater fullness. There is more fullness in the story compared to either fables or tales. And you know, it's you may think it's, oh, short story is easier to write, but it might not be the case, right? Because good writers of short stories, you need to be very skilled. You need to render, you need to put forth to the audience very vivid or dramatic events, and you need to enable your reader to almost feel like they are there. You know, you draw them into the story with you. So it's not really, it may not be such an easy thing to do. If you think, it's not just in terms of length. Novel is long, a short story is short, so oh, it's easier to write a short story. No, because there are a lot of things that you need to include within that you know, that shorter length, to create the illusion for your reader as they go about reading your story. Now, short story writers, you know, they avoid long summaries, and the idea is to show rather than to simply tell, right? To show by what they describe in the story what's happening, rather just to tell the reader what's happening in simple words. So this is just a small quote from a famous uh, uh, Scottish writer, A.L. Kennedy. So he looks at short stories as it's small in a way that a bullet is small. You know, it's really that small, but then like a bullet, it can also uh, go straight to the person and kill them. So that's kind of, uh, you know, he likens it to that. Because a short story is rich and concise. Um, Now, when we read short stories, you may just think, oh, this is just dialogue, people talking about things, but there is meaning in even the small things that people say, the casual speeches that you read, that are in the text, or even trivial details. And you will find this later when you read some of the short stories. Yeah, you may think, oh, it's just people talking, just conversation. And if you skip it, you're actually missing out on significant parts of the story. Now, what are common preoccupations in a short story? Usually, what are the main concerns? What do short stories yeah, what are they about? Usually, in most, it's not necessarily all, there is this moment of epiphany. It's like some moment of insight or some moment of discovery or revelation by which a character's life or view of life is greatly altered. All right. Um, so there will be this moment of realization, like, oh wow, the character suddenly changes and discovers something new. They have found out something new about themselves or about the world around them. Yeah, so there is this moment of epiphany. We call it epiphany, a moment of great insight. Or we also can find this commonly in short stories. Uh, it's like a character's initiation, where a character is initiated into the experience of maturity. So maybe previously you see the character as being very naive, all right? And then find in the short story, you see how they grow. There is character development and growth into becoming more mature. So sometimes these are common preoccupations in a short story. Okay, so that's just a brief introduction on what short stories are. Yes, in our last lecture, you would have, some of you said the main distinction is a short story is shorter. Yes, it is. But, it's also a very rich and full story, and the writer needs to capture a lot of vivid details and a lot of vivid imagery in that short text. So common features in short stories, you've told me that you've already taken a literature paper before, critical literary analysis or something. So I'm sure these words are common to you. Plot, character, setting. Are you familiar with, these should be familiar words for you? I mean, things that you've explored before. Plot, character, setting, theme, motivation, foreshadowing. So in this course, in the next few weeks, we are also going to look in greater detail at all these elements, all right, at all these features in short stories. Yeah, so we'll do this in subsequent weeks. Okay. So our tutorial task for today. So what I'll do is I will get you to get I'll use breakout rooms and I will put you in different groups. This is just a tutorial task, so I'll just randomly put, what I mean, I'll just randomize and you will just form groups on your own. You don't have to remain in, this doesn't mean it's your assignment group, yeah, it's just for today's tutorial task. So in groups, discuss the following questions. Let me just explain to you what the questions are, and then I'll give you some time and later you can present, okay? Let me just go through the questions with you. So question number one, most people would agree that a short story, as the name suggests, involves the telling of a story, but what exactly is a short story? So I'm going to, if on the next slide, there are a few examples. You need to tell me which do you think describes a story best, all right? So there are A, B, C, D, E, F, all right? 4 different options to choose from. In your group, discuss which do you think best illustrates what a story is, all right? And once you and your group have decided and come up with what you want to choose, why, tell me a reason why you have chosen whatever option you know, from the list earlier. What characteristics does a story have which makes it different from a non-story? All right, so why have you chosen that particular option as a story? And why do you think the others are not stories? So give me a reason why. So that's the first question. There are, you know, based on all these, you can pick one. The second one, question number two, look at paragraphs A to D. They are on the next slide. Which do you think are you most likely to find in a short story or a novel? All right. Why do you think this is the case? So there are A, B, C, D, again, a few options. Tell me, you know, if you are reading a short story or even a novel for that case, uh, which which of these four extracts do you think you might find, you know, in a short story or novel? So that's, and again, give me your reason why. Right, question number three. It has been suggested that much of the meaning of a short story is communicated by the language used and style of the delivery. Now, what kinds of problems do you think students learning English are likely to have with language and style in a short story? Sorry, I should just, maybe we'll just make it short story, yeah? I should delete novel, short story. Okay, so now when you go into schools later and you are required to teach your students short stories, what do you think your English language learners might find challenging and might find difficult? All right, so put yourself in the shoes of the students, your future students, and think about what are some struggles that they might have. Yeah, whether it's if you're going to be a teacher in Malaysian secondary schools, or perhaps you are in your own country. So what challenges do you think you might face, or the students might face? So that's question number three. And question number four, do an internet search and find an example of flash fiction. In our lecture the other day, I told you that you know, other words now for short stories, people also conceptualize short stories in the form of flash fiction. So do an internet search, find an example, or if you are really creative and you want to come up with your own example, you want to produce your own piece of flash fiction, you can do that as well. All right. So these are the four questions that I have for you. Let me see how many groups. Uh, so what I'll do is, um, depending on, maybe we will have 6 groups. All right, we will have 6 groups. I will later put you into 6 groups. Group 1, 2, and 3, you can look at question number 1. Sorry, those who are in room number 1, 2, and 3, you can answer question number 1. Question number 2, you do not need to do. You can do question number 3 and 4. Okay, so those of you later who I assign you to room number 1, 2, and 3, you can do question number 1, 3, and 4. And those of you who are who are in room 4, 5, and 6, you can do question number 2. You do not need to do question number 1 because question number 1 and question number 2 are almost the same. So you can do question number 2 and you can do question number 3 and 4. All right. And for question number 4, let me highlight, if you want to come, I encourage you, if you want to display your creativity a little bit, you can come up with your own flash fiction. Or if you think there are also lots of examples online, find something that you and your group like, and you can also find an example online, sorry, from the internet. So up to you. So these are the 4 questions for our tutorial, the 4 questions for you to discuss during a tutorial. What you can do is, while you are discussing, you can just put up brief points on a Word document or on slides, and later you can ask You can get a representative from your group to later present whatever your group has discussed. It doesn't have to be one person. If you know, you can have 2 or 3 people present, as long as someone from your group presents whatever you have discussed. Yeah. So these are the 4 questions. Any clarification that you need regarding what your task for today is? Any questions? All good?
Yes,
So good.
Okay, right. So we have 48, well, 48 plus me. So I will put you into different breakout rooms now. And you can find the slides just now. I've actually posted them up on Putra Blast. You can see it, yeah? Yeah, you can just download the slides and refer to the questions over there. Because now I'm not sharing my screen anymore, you can just refer to the questions over there. So I'll just randomly assign you to different groups. This is your time to interact a little bit with some people in your class who maybe, you know, you've not worked with before, and you haven't had the opportunity to work with, you know, on a task. So I'll just randomly assign you. Now I will give you, how much time do you think you need for that task? 1 hour. Maybe I'll give you, okay, maybe 10 o'clock. All right. You can stop at 10 o'clock. Now it's 9:24, 9:25. If you need more time later, you let me know and then I will give you more time. All right. But for now, you aim for 10 o'clock. Once I put you into your groups, I will come later on and pop by to see if you're doing okay. And if you need any assistance, you can also ask me from your breakout room to come in. You can invite me to join your breakout room, yeah? All right, so that's your tutorial task for today. And yeah, let me see. So I'll have 6 rooms.
Oh,
Yes? Any trouble?
I forgot. I'm so sorry for that advertisement. I'm really sorry, and let's proceed.
Okay. All right, so we have 6 groups. I will just assign automatically. So we'll have about 7 to 8 in one room. Group 1, then we move to group 6, and then group 2, group 5, and then group 3 and 4 present. Okay, so we instead of always making group 6 the last group to present, we'll do 1, 6, 2, 5, 3, and 4. So right, let's start with group 1. I will please come and present and share with us what you discussed with your group mates earlier.
Okay, I'll share the screen. Okay. Can everyone see the screen?
Yes, and
Okay.
hear you and see you.
So we will. Okay. So hello everyone. My name is Hazika, and I'm going to share the screen. And we are from Group 1. So let's move on with the first question, which will be presented by Yasi.
Okay, for the first question, most people would agree that a short story, as the name suggests, involves the telling of a story. But what exactly is a story? Which of the following you describe as a story? So, you believe that the statement E is the right answer? Wait. It says about It says, Little Miss Muffet sat on a tuffet, eating her curds and whey. Along came a spider and sat down beside her and frightened Miss Muffet away. So in this sentence, it has all the characteristics of a story should have. For example, it has Miss Muffet, which is the character, set on a tuffet, it's the setting, and then also eating her guts. And Camel Spider, which is the conflict, I guess, and frighten her away is the resolution, we think. And also, we can see the flow of the event in the sentence, which is not in the other sentences, which are just merely just a statement. So yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, so move on to question number 3. Okay, so the question is, it has just been suggested that much of the meaning of a short story is communicated by the kind of language used and the style of the delivery. What kinds of problem that you think students learning English are likely to have with the language and style of a short story or a novel? So we come up with 2 answers. So the first one, in terms of the language of the story, we think that some of the students may struggling in terms of the vocabulary and the adjective, because as we all know, the short story that students learn in the classroom in school, sometimes the author is from a different country, such as an American. So not all students read that kind of story that consists of an American author. So I think students may struggling with in terms of the vocabulary and adjectives when they want to understand the plot of the story, maybe, or maybe the characters. So the second one, in terms of the style of the short story, we think that students are struggling as well, because the story consists of different culture, especially in terms of the settings of place and times that the author present. How the author describes the events or objects in the short story may be different, as the Western culture is different from ours. Okay, we think that these are the 2 points that students may struggle with while they are learning a short story in the classroom. So moving on to the question number 4, which will be presented by Wada or Fatiha.
Yeah, I will be presenting.
Okay.
So for the question 4, do an internet research, search and find an example of flash fiction, or feel free to come up with your own examples. Of course, we're doing some internet search, and we choose the Nightly Visit by Alana and Jules. So actually, flash fiction is the fictional work of extreme brevity that still offers character and plot development. A very short story, also known as dribble. The dribble sudden fiction or micro story. While there is no set word count that separates flash fiction from more traditional short stories,